So, welcome to Generation Movie on a Monday night. It's very fun that I get to do this, which is live from LA. It's Rich Drees.
Hey, everybody!
Rich is joining us from the world famous Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles on this wonderful Monday night for Generation Movie. Welcome. My name is J.W. Colwell. Rich is live from LA.
That's right, my friends.
I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd. But anyway, we'll talk about that as we go. Lot of good stuff going on for you. I'm ecstatic for you. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
I know you're going to LA. You get to do all these cool things. I'm jealous of you. I want to murder you in your seats. Things like that. Little things. But this is the hotel you're staying at. Hold on. Let's go through. Look at that. Look at that hotel.
That's just the side entrance.
Rich, but is it the hotel from Bachelor Party?
It is, my friend. It is indeed.
Do you boys know where you are? Library of Congress, Beyond the Sun, any of those, right? You also got to go. You've got to go to see some museums. Got to go see this amazing piece of film history. Describe this picture, Rich.
Okay.
Tell me what this is. Tell everybody what this is who's watching.
This pretty much greets you when you walk into the Academy's museum. It's on the left. This is the original Dykstra Flex motion control camera that John Dykstra basically invented so they could make Star Wars and give us those swooping spaceships and everything. This is an actual, I believe this is the 4-foot model of the Millennium Falcon, on loan also from Lucasfilm.
And it's in your backpack, right? It's in your suitcase to go home.
Shh! Don't tell anybody.
Quiet. Shh.
But it is, it's one of those pieces of equipment that I had heard about since 1977, I guess, and I just knew that
right.
Until CG, this was the thing that made everything possible for special effects, for visual optical effects that we all love in movies. And to see, that original piece was moving to me.
With that piece.
Exactly.
The camera's great. And then once you realize what the camera, you're taken back, all those sequences where the Falcon is swooping and moving and going around. It's a super piece. It's super cool. I got to get to the Academy Museum is what you're telling me. You also are.
It is only there through the middle of July, I think. So it's only there for a couple of more weeks, unfortunately.
Okay.
But
there's
a lot of other great stuff at the museum that I didn't send you pictures of yet. I was there for
it's movie nerd porn is what
I was there for a 4K restoration of Singing in the Rain at their theater there, and it was beautiful. I teared up at just how lovely this film looked. It's one of my all-time favorites anyways. I've always, and I've seen it, a dozen times
it fits the description. It's a musical plus it's a movie about movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things. You also have gone to more movies already, but you got to go to this place, the Beverly Cinema, right? Which is
you probably haven't heard of the owner of this place.
Yeah,
by the name of Quentin Tarantino. I'm sure he'll come up later tonight.
Kind of. It's an important night for him on Generation Movie.
And what was great was the 35 millimeter. Everything they show is 35 millimeter, unless they're showing 16 millimeter. And the prints for these two movies, which are both kind of like on the run car movies from 1970, 71.
They're great movies.
Both of these prints were Fox's archival prints. The one I think was Vanishing Point was struck back in 2004. I think they said in the intro, and then Dirty Mary Crazy Larry was struck in 2013, which at least for Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, that kind of lines up with when I know the Blu-ray of the movie came out. Which
I'm gonna tell you what you look like in this picture, as my grandma used to say, like a pig in shit.
oh my friend, it was the
You
promised
look
land.
so happy. Okay, then there are other pictures we gotta get to.
Uh-oh.
This is you being smug on a plane.
Yeah. Well, if I'm flying, I think I picked the absolute perfect reading material for my flight.
And then this one, these next, well, the one we're gonna do first, like we're talking about it. These are quintessential LA places, right? And they're quintessential LA places for many movies.
Yes.
But you pointed out my movie touchstone it would be, and then you pointed out your movie touchstone.
Yes.
So,
if you're familiar with a lot of movies from the 1980s, you're going to see this as either the gates around Manhattan in John Carpenter's Escape from New York, or if you know me, you know the reason I'm there, and it's kind of a giveaway on the shirt. This is the Sepulveda Dam, and this is where they did the closing credits march for Buckaroo Banzai, which is one of my all-time favorite films.
That's in your top 3, right?
Yeah, yeah. You can see I was wearing a Hong Kong Cavaliers T-shirt and everything. I sent that picture to some friends from high school who were also all fans of the movie.
Bonsai nerds.
Yeah.
Is there a bonsai term? Is there a term for bonsaiites?
I don't think so. Blue Blaze Irregulars, I guess, after the support team for Buckaroo from the movie.
Okay. You should look into that. That should be something we should be like on top of. And then this is relevant tonight, and then we'll talk some movie news. But this,
okay.
Rich, describe what I'm looking at here, and then tell me why it's important, especially tonight.
If you live long enough in any town, you will notice how things change. Buildings get reused or torn down, and something else is put up in their place. This, if you kind of squint, you may see it.
Don't say it. Hold on.
Okay.
We'll make it work. So this is the magic of our show.
Mm-hmm.
We can make things work. Hold on. I need a new number. Give me a second.
Okay. But this picture was taken. This picture was taken about 10 hours ago or so. This was the first thing I did today, actually, was hunt this location down for the show tonight. So I want you people to know.
Okay, so this place is it looks like it's a demilitarized zone now. It looks like it's got a big fence around it and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it used to be this.
Yes.
It used to be Jackrabbit Slims.
Mm-hmm.
Which is amazing. That's incredible. So
yeah,
you're living the movie nerd's dream.
Yeah, and to get that picture, I kind of had to stand on a bus stop bench and hold the camera up a little bit over a fence.
Nothing wrong there. You were immediately on camera, and you're immediately subject to some sort of security.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Let's see what the kids in the chat are saying. Good evening, friends. Good evening, Ken McKernan.
Hey, Ken.
Good evening, gentlemen. Hope all is well. You both look great. LA looks amazing on Rich. It does. I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. I'm feeling better, so everything's cool.
We haven't even talked that much about this hotel.
No, the Biltmore is beautiful. Again, if I checked in there, I'd be like, if they said, "Do you know where you're at?" I would have to do. I do all the fucking bachelor party things, like beyond any of those, right? Like that culmination of lines, like, is just one of the greatest. Library of Congress. And then it gets beyond, like, Brad is drugged out and he's like, Beyond the Sun. And then Tom Hanks just looks at the managers like, any of those, right?
There's also, if you come in through another door, which they've actually, because they kind of reconfigured the lobby a little bit, so you actually come in through where the parking garage kind of drops people on and off, and that's now the check-in. But most people know how to walk into this place by the not this way coming in, but another hallway, which I did not send you a picture of, and I apologize.
I'm just playing. I'm playing to whatever you send me. I've
I've
done my homework. I got everything up. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're in the middle of the show. It's fine.
But the other movie most people
next
know
week,
that
if everybody tunes in next week, we will get a full.
Oh yeah,
we'll get a full travelogue.
This is basically the Ghostbusters hotel.
Yeah, this is yes. We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
I looked around. It seems relatively clear. I don't know, but no ghosts up here on floor 9. At least.
I just want you to walk around and poke some old guy. That's my favorite. That's my favorite part in the Biltmore is that just Egon walking up to the old guy and just poking him.
Okay, here's a little bit of peek behind the scenes. The lobby and the ballrooms are here in the building. The upstairs stuff where where we get the poke and they're throwing photons at Slimer and everything. That was all on a studio set.
So there you go.
Yeah. Although the hotel, the hallways do look a little close to that.
There's the interesting thing about old hotels is they all. Whenever I go to a really old hotel, all I can think of is The Shining. Like just the way the floor is constructed, like the carpeting and like so. But you're living there.
Yeah, and Reitman shot a scene from Dave here. Glee has shot here. There's a lot of House of Lies from the Showtime series shot down in the bar once. There's a lot of history in this place. In fact,
so have you seen any ghosts? Because
no,
that's an old school Hollywood thing. You know what I mean? Like
they have in some of these ballrooms, they've had early Oscar ceremonies, and when the Academy first kind of established itself, before they were even saying let's have an Oscar ceremony, let's have an Academy Award ceremony, they had this big, hey, we're here, kind of banquet. And the head of the Academy at the time, legend has it, during that dinner, sketched out the idea of what a statue should be for an Academy Award. The idea of the design,
a naked guy with a sword on a film reel.
Yes.
Just amazing.
Actual Oscar was designed in this building. Also, the lobby is one of the last places the Black Dahlia was seen before she disappeared and was subsequently found dead. But that's besides the point.
Let's not imitate the Black Dahlia.
No.
Let's not do that, Rich.
No.
You got to come home.
Yes.
So speaking of coming home, good segue.
Nice.
Perfect segue. You know what's really good about coming home is it's amazing when movies open and an audience comes where it's supposed to be, and everything goes right, and the critics love it, and the audience loves it, and it grosses a staggering amount of money in 3 days.
I see this as a big, giant middle finger to Bob Chapek, and it absolutely should be viewed that way by everybody, because he was the asshole who thought, let's throw Pixar stuff onto Disney Plus and devalued the brand name. And I think this is a great repudiation of how fucking wrong he was.
Well, it's not just that. Like that's part of it. But part of it is, so movie going is a fundamentally addictive personality disorder. It's something where you go every week. You are trained to go every week, and if you don't go every week, you feel like you're missing out on something. And then I've had at least 3 strings in the last 2 years where I've been sick or something. Like I've had
Mhm.
physical stuff where I can't go, and I'm tapping a vein, just like I need to go to a movie.
Yeah, I
And
hear
I think the interesting thing here is that you need the product,
you. Hmm.
and then you need to train people to go back to the movies because we've been given everything. This ADD culture we're living in, where everybody is given everything they want now, and it's like you know. eh, Going and communally enjoying Inside Out 2 this weekend is nice. It doesn't hurt that we also have, like, I was looking at the numbers. Bad Boys only dropped like 40%.
That's pretty.
So, for an action movie sequel, Bad Boys is at $113 million in 2 weeks. That's pretty good. Planet of the Apes came roaring back to an extra, like, it went up 2% from last week. So that's at 158. So
Hmm.
I mean, there are big movies coming. Theaters just kind of have to hold on. And they just started releasing the 6 week tracking reports. And I will tell you that the Deadpool tracking reports are
Insane.
fucking crazy. For anybody who watches this business, like as you and I do, the idea that there is a tracking report out there for Deadpool and Wolverine that has a $200 million weekend attached to it with
I.
all of the factors go, and that's being conservative. I'm being conservative. A
Mhm.
$200 million weekend with an a heavy R-rated movie. Although I did see in one of the tracking things, people don't know that it's R-rated, which I think is cute. I think it's adorable that
Mhm.
they don't know that the first two Deadpool movies are R-rated, and this one is also going to be R-rated, and with all the trailers and the popcorn bucket and everything, and people are just the trackers are like, oh, we don't know if they know it's R-rated.
I mean, the
Okay,
tickets have been on sale for what, a month almost now. It's
yeah,
you know,
but I've never seen anything like it, and it's I think there are two or three movies that could come out in the next couple months that theaters will be first off. Theaters are looking at it like we just need to get through this dry spell where we don't have movies opening every week or whatever's happening.
mhm.
Next summer will be different. Next summer will be packed to the gills. But I just think it was really nice watching Inside Out 2 in a packed theater, and we we went to see it, and we had a lost wallet, and it was like the theater was crazy. Like it was crazy, like just people everywhere, and the staff looked flustered, like they've never that for some staffs of movie theaters, this is the first taste of what a blockbuster looks like.
What a
Because
fun summer blockbuster
right,
season.
what a major 4 5 quadrant movie looks like, where everybody's coming, everybody's buying popcorn, everybody's buying candy, everybody's doing everything they're supposed to be doing to keep
Mhm.
movie theaters afloat. And I was looking at my AMC staff, and they're adorable people. They're really nice people. They looked like, what the fuck is this? We've been kind of just coasting, right? And this was like, they looked tired. They looked like, so with that in mind, I want to say to everybody who watches our show and people who respect and listen to us, pick up your fucking garbage when you leave.
Yes.
Pick up your goddamn garbage when you leave. Don't be a piggy, right? Just take your shit with you. Carry it to the trash, at least to the trash bin that is sitting in front of the theater where they're going to be moving around the trash bin trying to get everything. Be nice.
Mhm.
Treat if you're going to the movies in the next couple weeks, as things pick up, ramp up towards July 4th and all the things that are opening, especially Despicable Me 4. Be nice. Be nice to your staffs of your movie theaters. They don't need your shit. Whatever's going wrong, you're late, your kids are being crazy. They don't need it. They don't need to hear it. So just be nice to them. They will be nice to you. Like we lost a wallet. So we had a so I was in a 1 o'clock show on Saturday. No, I was in a 2 o'clock show on Saturday. I had to go back in a mass of people and try to find a wallet under a seat.
Oh my
And
god.
the staff at AMC was so nice. So I want to give them a shout out. They took very good care of me, and they recognized me because I go every week. And they walked me in. They're like, I was like, "Do you have a flashlight?" And I was like, "Fuck, I'm sorry, I have a phone." Like, I immediately remitted back to old school moviegoer.
Hmm.
Like, do you have a flashlight? Every usher had a flashlight in our theater. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then I realized I don't need it. I carry my own flashlight now. Totally forgot, Rich. It was a helpless little babe in the woods.
Derp.
But derp. But it's good to have movies back. It's good to have movies doing great. My wife and I went to see Inside Out too. She enjoyed it. I tolerated it. Really,
Dude.
Joe, don't be a grumpy Gus.
Don't be that
It,
grump.
it's a great movie. It's a really good movie, and it's cute and it's adorable, and it's got hockey in it. Like, you can't really go wrong. As a Ranger fan with nothing and no skin in the Stanley Cup Finals, Riley trying to make the Firebrands or whatever the fuck the team was. But I liked Anxiety. I like, in a way, I liked all the new. I like the concept that we're all built on. We're all built on memories, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I thought the movie was really great. I also got to see this weekend. You got to see it first, and I'm jealous. I'm still working on that shit, but I got to see this movie on Hulu.
Ah.
I I think the most interesting thing about it, like, I liked it. I was, how do I say this? I was shocked at how, I remember the Brat Pack term being thrown around, but I always thought it was a term of endearment, right? I always viewed it as like the Rat Pack, Brat Pack.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool nickname, right? And then you're watching the movie, and like Andrew McCarthy's like, I didn't get roles because Emilio Estevez. They talk about that one script that I'm sure you've read.
I haven't. I would love
I
to.
immediately thought of you, and I immediately thought we need to read that script because we need to find that script and read it because it
Yeah.
sounds like it was amazing. But Ali Sheedy was incredible in the movie. Like, just like this very nice, she comes across
Mm-hmm.
as she came across in War Games, and I guess she's what, in her 60s now, and
Early 60s, but she
early
looks
60s.
fantastic.
She looks great. And I didn't know it was such a burden, and I felt really bad for them.
Excuse me.
And then I realized, I realized I'd never read the article, so I went back and I read the article, and it is fucking snide, no matter what the writer says. It's fucking snide and mean spirited, and childish, as if, the idea that you have these talented kids in front of you, and you can rip them apart just because
I I mean, I like the idea that they went to him because as I was watching it, I was thinking, are they going to talk to this guy or not? Because this might make or break the documentary for me. And
it made it. I thought it made the documentary. I agree with
yeah.
you.
Yeah. I mean, I would have wished that Judd Nelson and Molly Ringwald had decided to participate. I would have wished they could have gotten everybody into a room together to have a conversation, but I'm sure that would have been a nightmare to try to get happen.
Logistics are
Yeah.
a bitch.
Mhm.
But I also, I thought, it's not the greatest of documentaries, but it's also, if you grew up in that time frame, all the things that are being said around the movies are all true. Like, you were you a Ducky or a Blaine? Were you like, which member of the Breakfast Club were you? You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely, Ducky. This should come as no surprise to you.
I wasn't represented in the Breakfast Club. I mean, for me, I was like, but I love the movie. So it's like, but it's one of those things where it's a fascinating documentary. I was fascinated as somebody who was a movie fan, I didn't realize how bad it was
Mm-hmm.
for these really talented people. And then, you know, they make one or two movies together, and then they stop making movies together because they're trying to get out from under it. And
Yeah.
I just never put two and two together.
I mean, I always had the feeling that yes, it was very reductive of them in a way, and that they, you know, kind of grew up. Some of them really resenting it, and some of, you know, everybody having to at least struggle with it. I understand that, even though it, you know, it can be, hey, the business is unfair no matter what. So if it wasn't this, it could have been something else.
Well, no,
That, you know, could have.
I thought Demi Moore was amazing when she's just like, you took what somebody else made a definition of and you ran with it, right? You had it in your head, it swirled around your head and whatever.
Mhm.
I just I found that really fascinating. I also found out, like, I found from my interpretation, my personal interpretation, from the Brat Pack and the Rat Pack. My dad, I saw Ocean's 11, I saw all the Rat Pack movies. So if you say Rat Pack to me, I think a bunch of people were hanging together who were having the best fucking time ever,
Yeah.
right? And then they're living in Vegas and they're doing all kinds of
Mhm.
bullshit.
I think they
They're-
were having the time of their lives, hanging out together and stuff, until that article came out and kind of tried to label it like that in a negative way, in a pejorative way. And that's when it all ended for them like that, in a certain way. And it kind of was like a crushing of their innocence, if you will. And that I could see being resentful for. You know, if you're having a great time and somebody, you know, comes along and poops in the party, you're going to, you know, you're not going to like that person.
it's an interesting documentary. I think,
Yeah.
again, the most interesting thing is, oh wait, hold on, let's see. Got some comments. Brett Wagner, we aren't talking Brat Pack. It's just the beginning of the show. We're going over whatever hot movie things are going.
Yep.
Good to have you. I know you are
Welcome,
Brett. We appreciate you coming. I would never want to run into you in Texas. I'm going to leave it at that, Brett. I think you know what I'm talking about. I hope people do. Brett is, of course, one of our leather faces in the film world, so we appreciate you joining us. We are going to be talking Pulp Fiction, so stick around by all means. Keep on commenting. We're just doing some quick news, and then we'll get to the other stuff.
By quick, we mean this is like the first half hour of the show.
Yeah, this is what we do. But Rich is also in LA, so it's been out of hand. Based on the ending, I'm assuming they'll be in the second Bratz. I don't know. Ringwald is definitely a no, sir.
No, here's the thing, though. As I know, I've told you this, but you know, I don't think I've mentioned it ever on the show, that about 2018, 2017, I saw Molly Ringwald perform at the Blue Note in New York City, doing jazz standards. She had a small little combo, just doing, you know, songs out of the Great American Songbook. And she closes her show with a beautiful, heart-rending, it got me a little teary.
Little verklempt.
Yeah, a little verklempt version of "Don't You Forget About Me," and she, you know, dedicates it to John Hughes. So the fact that, you know, they say in the movie she's trying to put everything behind her doesn't quite square with the fact that for her act she wants to play on that nostalgia a little bit. So I mean, I'm not dissing her.
Everything behind you.
I'm not dissing her as a performer. Yeah. I just think it's a weird kind of like, well, I don't want to talk about it except when I can use it, you know.
It's a weird hill to die on. I don't want to talk about the most famous thing I'm known for, and I you know, we love you for it. Like, I don't know. Oh yeah. Yes, sir, Joe Ridgely. Anyway, okay. So this is a perfect segue. We've got interesting things. But we have a movie tonight.
Yes, we do.
It's easily one of the most influential movies in the history of Hollywood. Like, the movies it gets mentioned with, violence-wise, right? Like, as a movie that kind of, like, comes in, changes whatever the dynamic is in the American cinema, you know, whether with brutality or whatever, or humor or whatever. The movies it's discussed with are Psycho, Bonnie and Clyde, and A Clockwork Orange, which is
I mean, I can almost understand like the Psycho comparison because there's not a lot of violence in this movie, but when there is, it's brutal and it's a quick
It's
punctuation.
stark. It
Yeah,
is
the
a
same way it
stark
is with Psycho, I
with
think.
Psycho, yes. And it's like, and the violence is like nothing you've ever seen
Hmm.
when it happens. Okay, so the movie we're doing tonight is Pulp Fiction. Uma Thurman sitting on a bed with a gun and a cigarette and looking as femme fatale as she possibly can.
Ugh.
But yeah, this movie, like, I have pictures we're gonna go through as we go, but this movie is one of those movies that you, it was a cultural phenomenon when it happened, and it became, as it's progressed, it's become more of a cultural phenomenon, and also it's just one of those copied movies. It's one of those movies that is so copied, it
Mm.
doesn't know what to do. It like the copies are so bad that you look at them and you go, it's trying so hard to be Pulp Fiction, and it's not. And the other thing about it is the copies are happening, and it's like, don't do the copy. Go
Hmm.
do your own movie, because if you try to get into the rhythm of this circular narrative that's constantly flowing, constantly moving, and constantly keeping the audience on edge and having to pay attention, which is something that is very hard to replicate in a 2.5 hour movie, Rich. But let's start with production. It Hey Sean, hey brothers, I'm late but I made it. We
Hey,
appreciate you
John.
being here, Sean. We appreciate you. So let's start with production. This movie starts out as, and this is shocking, when you start to think about it, starts out as a piece of true romance, right? Like two or three of the stories start out as these short little bumps that were going to be in true romance that kind of like, after a while, Roger Avery and Tarantino say, well, they're not going to be in true romance, but there's a nugget of information there. There's a nugget of a story of something there.
Hmm.
And that's where it starts. Like, when you're reading about the history of the movie, it starts as these guys saying, I want to make like a, what would you say, like a pulpy novel where the author kind of can go from one thing to the other and not, like, all the stories flow together,
Yeah, it's
right?
an anthology film in a way. We have separate stories, and the characters kind of cross over. So you could say, oh, it's an anthology film and a shared universe, if you wanted to get kind of wonky about it. And that's even before you get into the nonlinear aspect of the storytelling.
Well,
Uh,
and the interesting things about the production are not well. There's a couple interesting things about production that stand out. First thing that stands out for me is Roger Avery is credited as stories by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery. Stories.
yes.
And the movie is written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. That's the tag. That's the thing. There you go. What I'm going to
Up
say
by
to you
Larry
is,
Edmonds' bookshop today. Oh,
the interesting thing here is he talks Roger Avery out of the credit,
I
so
know.
he can put written and directed by Quentin Tarantino on it, and it's not alarming, but it's not cool, because these story nuggets are directly related to Roger Avery material, where he's working on it and whatever. And when they start making the film and they start producing the film, he goes to Roger Avery and says, it will look better if it says written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. And it's kind of a blemish. I'm not going to lie to you. I read it today and I was disheartened by it. I was reading up
Mhm.
on the film, and it's just like, because I always like Roger Avery scripts and I always like Roger Avery stuff. So when you hear that Tarantino talked him out of it, it's a little bit like those stories.
Eh,
Yeah, it's like, meh. The stories you hear about back, like somebody doing a hustle, or like for me, it hit a little bit like I've heard a lot of stories about Mike Myers, right? Where it's just like Mike Myers being a complete d-bag behind the scenes,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's a little bit d-baggy. But so that's the first story. The other story that I think really hits close to home is when they went to finance it and they're trying to find a home for it, and I'm amazed. It goes all these different places. It starts out, Lawrence Bender is working with Jersey Films, and Jersey Films has a deal with TriStar. They take it to TriStar, which Columbia and TriStar are together at this time. They take it to them, and it's going to be a TriStar movie, but it gets put into turnaround. And the studio executive, Mike Medavoy, calls the movie, goes to them and says, this movie is too demented. And that basically he says to them, and this is a quote, I guess, that Roger Avary remembers. This is the worst thing ever written. It makes no sense. Someone's dead and then they're alive. It's too long, violent, and unfilmable. And there's a reason Mike Medavoy isn't working anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, like, it's, like, it's so alarming. That TriStar, TriStar and Columbia, who were struggling to keep above water in the 90s, and they had this sitting on their desk, and they couldn't get past that the structure is a circular structure. They couldn't get past that it was violent. They couldn't get past that there was a heroin user in it. They couldn't get past, even though, it's a real subject that's happening all over the world.
Well,
I found that fascinating, Rich. Fascinating.
I rewatched the movie like right before we came on. I made sure I was back.
I was
to the
close.
hotel.
Yeah, I was like 5 o'clock. I started.
Yeah, and when I was down on Hollywood Boulevard today doing my touristy stuff, I made that point to stop in at Larry Edmunds' bookstore, which is a great bookstore for all sorts of old, new, and used books on film history and everything. They also have a nice script section. It's not huge, but I did pick up Pulp Fiction because I was like, you know what? For $15, I'm going to sit here and kind of go along with, this is the it's May 1993 last draft, so I'm going along with it, and the script doesn't give an indication of the time jumps and the nonlinear structure, and I have to think that if Tarantino at least may have gotten a little too caught up with his own cleverness about his structure, if he had at least kind of indicated that this is going to be nonlinear, because ultimately it's about certain characters' arcs, and you can't really reveal these arcs in a straightforward linear way.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that.
That he might have found Mike Medavoy to be a little bit more receptive. I can't say that for certain, but it did cross my mind as we're just talking about it now. Another thing everybody always wonders, what does it, what is in the briefcase? And Tarantino in the script doesn't even describe it outside of like a glowing light, which feels.
And I think the coolest thing about that is that everybody puts their own fucking twist on it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I don't know if it's for you, but for me, we'll talk about it later, I'm sure. But for me, there's an old timey movie that has a glowing briefcase that my dad showed me when I was a kid. So that's what I am. Kiss Me Deadly.
Yes, I was just about to bring that up. It's a great visual, echo of Kiss Me Deadly.
Well, Kiss Me Deadly, in Kiss Me Deadly, it's a radioactive, like I think it's a radio. Yeah, it's a radioactive isotope that anybody who opens the fucking briefcase immediately dies. So, but
it's a great movie, though. I recommend everybody who hasn't seen it.
Kiss Me Deadly. Kiss Me Deadly is fantastic. Great film noir. Amazing. It was showed to me by my dad. My dad, when he saw Pulp Fiction, he's like, fucking Rod. he's like, this is Kiss Me Deadly. My dad was very blunt about things. He was, he was a big purveyor of protecting his movies, but also like just blurting out things like as he's watching something, he's like, "That's Kiss Me Deadly for fuck's sake." You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? He goes, and then he would say something like, "Oh, it is Kiss Me Deadly. I like him. I like Tarantino. I like Tarantino."
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because it was like it's like being part of a club. That's what the movie's like. Kiss Me Deadly blew me away. It's a fantastic movie. Great movie. I highly recommend it. It's a perfect double feature with Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
Perfect. But then so they get away from TriStar. TriStar calls it unfilmable. And then it goes to Miramax and this guy, we're just gonna say this guy, along with his brother, were really enthralled by the script. They picked it up, they budgeted it to 8.5 million. And then the only thing you get about filming and about different things is there was a lot of fighting over who the actors were going to be. Like, that's a major, like, because Miramax had its players, right? So, like, for example, Travolta, who ends up working for less than scale, um, works for $100,000, anywhere from 100 to 140,000 is what they say.
Hmm.
But they wanted, like, the guy and his brother wanted. I think that's a good way to do it. The guy and
Yeah.
his brother wanted Daniel Day Lewis. Samuel Jackson. Well, actually, the guy Tarantino also wanted Michael Madsen, but Madsen worked on something else called worked on Wyatt Earp. Right, so Madsen's immediately out of the flow. Of course, everybody knows that Madsen played a Vega in
Kill
Reservoir
Bill
Dogs.
or Res Dogs.
Yeah, Mr. Blonde in Reservoir Dogs is related to Vincent Vega, in case you don't know. Other things, Samuel Jackson originally came in and was had a really bad audition. Paul Calderone, who is in the movie as the bartender and the guy that, if you're paying attention, replaces Jules with Vincent when they're going to the boxing match.
Hmm.
He gave a really good thing, and then Jackson came back in and knocked it out of the park. Lawrence Fishburne turned down the role, so Miramax wanted Lawrence Fishburne. He said no because I feel it glamorizes drugs. Who knew? Anyway, I'm
I
sorry.
would disagree with that, but there's nothing I don't think glamorous
Well, no,
about.
no, but can you imagine Lawrence Fishburne, who'd worked on Apocalypse Now, going, "I don't want to do this movie because it glamorizes drugs." Okay,
Eh.
whatever. Uma Thurman, of course, plays Mia Wallace, but Miramax wanted Holly Hunter, Meg Ryan, Alfre Woodard, Meg Tilly were all in the running for this, but
I
Tarantino
can't
wanted
see any
Uma.
of them in this. I mean, this is
It's
cast, I think, so perfectly.
I could see Holly Hunter, but it'd be a definitely weirder dynamic. Meg Ryan,
Mhm.
I think, is too sweet. You know what I mean? Like Uma Thurman is right in the comfort spot. Let's see. Harvey Keitel as Winston Wolfe was the only actor that was picked for it, but he also the reason Tarantino wanted him to do this one is because Tarantino loved him in a movie called Point of No Return, so it's like the same role. Um, Tim Roth, who plays Pumpkin, the guy in the beginning at the restaurant. Tarantino always had Roth in mind, but Mike Medavoy, when it was at TriStar, had Johnny Depp and Christian Slater read for it. Also, early in the script contemplation, Tarantino was thinking about using Vincent and Jules as British gangsters. So it was going to be Gary Oldman and Tim Roth, which that could have been interesting. It could have been interesting and crazy. Um,
That's a word for it. Crap is another word, I think, but it's
it could have been bad.
yeah.
And then Ving Rhames had to win his role too. People that were up for Marcellus Wallace were, and these are really kind of obscure ones. Max Julian and Sid Haig both came in at one point to read for it. The interesting thing is, Ving Rhames takes this role, runs with it, spikes it in the end zone, and then gets 20 movies after this movie, where it's based on how good he is in this movie.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, I mean, I could see Sid Haig having a chance here. simply because of all his blaxploitation work. Tarantino would have been like over the moon, I think, to have him in there, or at least
it would have been interesting.
That might have been a selling point if there was some contention about who should have the role. They'd be like, but it's Sid Haig. He was in all these blaxploitation movies you like.
Jamie Hill says hello. Hello, Jamie Hill.
Hi, Jamie.
Thank you for joining us. Joe, we need to get Film-A on and discuss his experience on this flick. He spoke about it a bit in West Palm at a con. Sure. Well, I'd love to hear Philomar's take on this.
I'd love to talk to Philomar about this, about Mad TV, so much of his career.
Much. Yeah, we would definitely, anytime Rich and I would come up with a special episode. It'll be like an after school thing. But that's the rub. There is no fighting on this movie. There's no whatever. Like there is, Bruce Willis and Travolta take scale, right? And basically it was like Bruce Willis, nobody remembers, but at the time Bruce Willis had been in a bunch of movies that weren't doing great. So this was a chance for Bruce Willis to come in, work on an indie movie, and knock it out of the park. And this movie ends up like when we get to the end of the night, when we're talking about legacy, and the legacy of this movie is, this is a movie that launched at least 3 careers. At least 3. Relaunched, kept Bruce Willis up.
Mm-hmm.
And then relaunched Travolta. And, I would say the 3 that come out of this movie are Rhames, Uma Thurman, and Samuel L. Jackson as major stars.
Yeah.
Right?
In the 4 years leading to the release of this movie, I just pulled this up here. This is what Bruce Willis had. He had Look Who's Talking 2 in the summer of 1990. December of 1990, he had Bonfire of the Vanities, which was a disaster. So bad that I turned to my brother after we had gone to see it when we were both home from college and apologized to him. I've never apologized to my brother. Then we had Hudson Hawk, Billy Bathgate, The Last Boy Scout.
It's a guilty pleasure.
Okay, that's fair. Some people do enjoy that. Small Part in the Player, which is a fantastic movie, but it's not a Bruce Willis film. So, Death Becomes Her, which
he's really good in that.
Some people do enjoy. It did not do well when it first came out, though.
No, but that movie has become a cult film. So
true.
And he's really good in it.
Striking Distance. And Color of Night.
That's a double oof. That movie's
and then he does Pulp Fiction. And I mean, he still has a couple of others kind of like in the pipeline that were garbage. Like he was in North and Nobody's Fool.
North is a bad movie. Nobody's Fool is good though.
Yeah,
that's him.
But then he does Die Hard with a Vengeance, 4 Rooms, and 12 Monkeys in a row. From like
it brings him back.
That's his 1995.
This is a bringing him back. This is him taking a chance, taking gross points and running with it. Couple comments. Bruce Willis and John Travolta trying to get their careers back from Look Who's Talking. Yeah, but those are big movies. Like, I would say this for any action film star or any star in general. You need a comedy family movie to get you completely over. Think about Schwarzenegger in Kindergarten Cop, or Schwarzenegger in Twins, or The Rock in, Vin Diesel in The Pacifier, The Rock in the Tooth Fairy movie. Like of the, you need to broaden your base and expand. Eric Stoltz too. Yes, I agree with that as well. But he's only in it. He's not in it enough to. I dig The Last Boy Scout. I think everybody.
Well, going from Look Who's Talking To for John Travolta, we have Eyes of an Angel, Shout, Boris and Natasha.
Oof.
Yeah.
These are putrid movies.
Yeah.
These are putrid. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I can't
and then Pulp
stress
Fiction.
it, and I can't stress it enough how important this movie is for like 6 major star careers. Like, that's part of the legacy. That's only part that we're not even talking about the copycats. We'll get there. Okay.
Yeah.
So production, they make it, they do whatever. Again, the scariest thing for me is that somebody talked somebody out of getting a screenwriting credit,
which
and
unfortunately
would have been an option as well.
It drove a wedge into their friendship. And when I see stuff like that happen, I'm like, guys, was it really worth it? Fortunately, they have repaired their friendship. They do a podcast together now.
Yeah, it's a really good podcast,
which is a fun podcast. Yeah, so
it's not as good as ours, but it's good.
No, it's how could it be?
How could it be?
Those are only two professionals, and we are just us.
This is of course John Travolta looking into a briefcase. Amazing. Also, other good pictures that I have. Also from a similar scene. Like, is there anything more iconic than this picture? Dressed like Reservoir Dogs, killing Frank Wally. And then look at this talent on display. Travolta, Willis, Jackson, and everybody that's in it gets such meat to chew on,
and
dialogue.
And Tarantino as a director is smart enough to do some shots as long oneers. Like when Vincent and Jules first arrive at that apartment building.
Yeah,
follow them from the elevator down to the door, past the door, and then back up. I don't know how long that scene is, but it's.
And then to the end of the hallway, and then they wait, they do a 5-minute take, and then they come all the way back. Of course, they got Travolta to dance, Jackrabbit Slims, being able to understand the idea of, the difference between Marilyn Monroe and Mimi Van Doren is important.
Yes.
Winston Wolfe, one of the great, cool characters that's been... How many fucking movies have cleaners now? How many fucking weird hitman movies have cleaners? He's a trope. He's not just a character. He's a trope in all these fucking crime movies. Then this guy knocks it out of the fucking park. Walken has 2 Tarantino scenes in his career, and they're both phenomenal.
Bananas good.
They're bananas good. I'm of course referring to the True Romance sequence right before he gets murdered. It's so good about Sicilians, the Sicilians, and it's just bonkers. But the Gold Watch is incredible. Okay, so you go, okay, well it did whatever, great. What's the box office look for a movie like this? Well, Pulp Fiction is one of the most interesting box office movies of all time, Rich. Of all time. It premieres in May '94 at the Cannes Film Festival, wins that. It then it doesn't, and this is a weird thing, Rich, it doesn't stack out. It doesn't. Most indie films in the 90s were releasing to 100 theaters, then 300 theaters. It was called a tiered system. It would release, and there wouldn't be a lot of prints. They wouldn't make a lot of prints, and then it would cycle around, kind of old school. Indie films did the old school movement around the country a little bit. This movie, however, doesn't do that. This movie is the first Miramax movie to open on 1,000 screens. It throws caution to the wind, Rich. And it goes after the box office when it finally releases on October 14th, 1994. It goes into full general release in the United States. It grosses $9.3 million. It beats a Sylvester Stallone movie that was 1 week old called The Specialist. It's a terrible movie, but it's a fun movie, but it's a terrible movie. And it beats it at the box office, and then it just, right at that moment, just so we're clear when we talk about things, it's $8.5 million budget, and they spent $10 million on advertising and prints. So it has an $18 million total. It equals half of its everything opening weekend, which is astounding for a movie. And if you look at the numbers are fucking crazy. The numbers are insane.
Mhm.
So it opens at $9.3 million. Its legs at the box office is 11.59 basically. It plays an average of 22 weeks at every theater it played. It opens at 1,300 screens, 1,338 screens. It eventually gets to 1,494 around the country. It runs 22 weeks at every theater it's playing at.
Remember when they used to allow movies to do that kind of stuff?
To play 22 weeks without going immediately to streaming?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do, and it was a good time. My dad was alive. I was happy. I knew you as well. Like it was still like you and I were still friends, so everything was cool. Plus, movies played forever, and movies did well. If they did well, they played forever.
Yeah.
But
Now
the
we're lucky
no,
if they play 22 days. It's fucking ridiculous. But
it's crazy. But listen to these numbers, Rich. So domestic share, it's 50.7 worldwide, right? With regards to how it's domestic versus its worldwide total. So 50.7. So it earns the same amount worldwide as it does domestic. But here's where we get really fun, Rich. And people who watch the show know we get into these numbers. The budget on the film is $8 million, around there. This movie grosses domestically $107 million. It grosses $104 million internationally, becoming a worldwide cultural phenomenon for $212 million in '94 money, which means, Rich, and we've thrown this number around and people listen to it. This movie's box office is 26.6 times its production budget. We said most studios are happy with five,
Mhm.
5 times production budget, 4 times. Like when we're dealing with these big, huge hyper movies that we're doing now, if Inside Out, which costs about 120 million to make, grosses $1 billion, it would only be about 10 times its budget. 26.6 times the budget, Rich. Ridiculous, crazy, insane. Also, the adjusted inflation number domestically is 277, which would mean it's the highest grossing movie this year by $120 million.
Mhm.
Like when people say cultural phenomenon, it gets thrown around a lot. We had two of them last summer, right? We only had two last summer. We're probably gonna have one or two this summer that are going to be called cultural phenomena.
Yeah.
This is a legitimate box office phenomenon.
And
Crazy.
people smelt the money and
Well, we're going to
some
get that in the legacy. They smelt the money, and then it's
indie was the thing.
indie. Yes, and a certain studio with a certain brother and his other brother, a certain guy with his brother, would end up making a lot of fucking money.
Mhm.
Because this is the movie that hits Miramax, puts them over the top, where it's a cool place to come. It's a great place to make movies. We're going to release your movies on as many screens as possible. We're not going to make you an indie. It's going to be indie filmmaking, but it's going to be bigger than indie filmmaking. And this is the movie that does it, right? This is the movie that causes a phenomenon to take place.
Mhm.
Listen to this statistic as we talk about box office. It's the 10th largest film of 1994. There were a lot of big movies released in '94.
It was a hell of a summer.
It was a hell of a summer. It was a hell of a fall. It was like,
Mhm.
'94. Lion King, Forrest Gump, like crazy. Okay, and so it's the 10th highest grossing film in '94. You go, oh, JW, that's not that great. That's not the cultural phenomenon you're talking about. Yeah, it's the 10th highest film, even though it played on almost 2,000 screens less than any of the other movies in the top 20. Think about that for a moment. The numbers, Rich. It is
Mhm.
in the top 10,
Its per screen average is so much higher.
and it's incredible. it's incredible the phenomenon it was. And then it does other things where you like where you read about them and they're like ridiculous, kind of like how much of a cult is it? How much of it was big? Um, it's a cultural phenomenon. And then when it went across the pond in the UK, where not all American movies hit, it did very well. But it also, like, this is a weird little tidbit that's around. You know, you can read about it. When they put the screenplay into book form in the UK, it became a top 10 bestseller for the year '94. So people were not only going to see the movie, they were reading it, like you are right now, like you did today. So I think it's one of those stories that has to be talked about. It's an incredible thing. And then so it becomes a cultural box office phenomenon, and then it becomes a critical phenomenon, as it deserves to be, right? You and I, you know, I am always been pro Reservoir Dogs as being gunmetal efficient, you know, shorter, tighter characters. Not every there's you know not a conflux of characters. Maybe you don't care quite about as much, but I am here to tell you, rewatching it today and thoroughly enjoying it, and just kind of like, I get it. I get it why everybody loves Pulp Fiction, right? It's it's this swirling narrative, and then you start trying to piece things together, like the idea, like that I don't know that everybody thinks about, but like I do, where it's like, if Jules doesn't have the crisis of conscience or the divine intervention idea in his head, you know, Butch dies. Butch doesn't make it to the Gimp, right? Like, stuff you formulate upon repeat viewings of this movie. It is one of those movies where the more you watch it, the more you're rewarded. I had one today, Rich, that I had never noticed before, and I don't know that anybody's noticed. But the sequence of Uma Thurman having the overdose in Eric Stoltz's house, right? As they're going to get, he says to his wife, "I am looking for the medical book, the nurse book." Go, and he gets the tray from the freezer, and then he's looking for the book. He walks past the chair, and I had never noticed it until today. And this is why we love movies, right? But on the chair in the drug house are two games. The games are Operation and Life. The game of life. And at that moment, there's an operation for Uma Thurman's life.
Yes.
And it's just shit like that where you're like, oh, God, he's fucking brilliant. I mean, I
it's
know
the
he's
most
flaky
casual piece of set dressing to kind of give you the idea that their home's a bit of a mess. And then suddenly it's just like, oh, shit.
It's amazing. I never noticed it before. I noticed it today. It was amazing. I think, I think you could find people who love any one segment. I was thinking about it today. I am in love with the Gold Watch. I think the Gold Watch is the coolest segment, only because it has the walk-in monologue. It has, you know what it has that I really fell in love with again today, watching it in 4K high def. It has Bruce Willis and Esmeralda Villalobos, the cab driver, and they're literally in a set doing old school timey 1930s
rear projection,
and the cars are in black and white. Rich, the cars aren't even in color, and it's just something you don't notice unless you watch it a couple times, and it's beautiful and it's transcendent. And it's just one of those things where it's like, the fuel on this fire that Tarantino has is that he loves movies, and he loves old movies, and he loves movies. So when cinematically everything that that kind of kicks out from this movie is not to mention the performances. Performances are Ving Rhames, everybody is on point. Like Samuel Jackson is acting his balls off. Travolta is like doing the dumb hitman thing perfectly that we're gonna see 150 other times, Rich, in various movies where you're just like, please stop. You know what I mean? And like and it's just one of those movies where you look at it and it's, you know, it's not perfect. It's not like cold, efficient gunmetal like Reservoir Dogs, but it is so ebullient in its storytelling and charm, and everything you're watching is just, it's like going to an improv show and everything is yes and yes and yes and all the way to the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Every scene eventually gets to the boiling point where you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know if anybody's going to die. I don't know if like Marvin's going to get shot in the face. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that we're going to get a moment where Harvey Keitel asks for a coffee, gets a coffee, looks at Tarantino, um, like points to the coffee, like, "Hey, this is good coffee." After Tarantino's character Jimmy has given the, I buy good coffee diatribe. So everything works. It very few things don't work except for it. The one thing that I was cringy with I was talking to you about it before we started. Tarantino's a little friendly with the N word, a little too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he stopped doing that, which I think is means the criticism was warranted, and in the Bonnie situation, it is a distinct red flag. He drops it like 3 times, like, and it's like, he's in a sequence with Samuel Jackson, and Jackson could have been able to deliver the line, and there'd be no repercussions. But Tarantino delivers it, and it's like part of me had the feeling in the pit of my stomach where it's like, I think he's getting the way of saying it because he's friends with Jules. So it's literally the black friend thing. I have a black friend.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's a weird thing that culturally is not as accepted as it was then.
Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation that does come up with Tarantino's work on a number of occasions. His next film, Jackie Brown, there's a whole big hubbub I recall about that again. I think it's kind of died down over time.
I think he's taken it and processed and stopped doing it.
Yeah, I mean, well, then again, in like the Hateful Eight, but that's a period piece where it seems very much appropriate to the characters, who are all shitty people anyways, to be using
They're all
terms like that.
terrible.
And the same with Django Unchained. Those kind of period pieces where that's just the unfortunate lingo of the day. So yeah, it's always kind of.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite sequence? Do you have a favorite part of the
Oh, in
movie you
here,
like?
in
I've bounced back and forth for many years between the Bonnie
I think
situation and
the
Goldwater.
Bonnie situation, barring the language here, I think is great the way that the wolf comes in and just handles the situation. I think it's really interesting. I like
You're gonna need your linens. Nothing white, only dark.
yeah, and given that the character doesn't really need much, Tarantino plays Jimmy fairly well. I like the final sequence in the coffee shop.
Yeah, the Samuel Jackson really chews up. Like he just kind of
In the
like,
best possible way, yeah.
yes, like it's an amazing, the idea that he has this whole thing that he says when he's gonna. If you heard this, do you like the Bible? And then he says, if you've heard this particular passage from me, it usually meant you were done. Like you're not
Yeah.
gonna be here anymore. And he goes, I've been thinking about it all day since I survived this moment. He has a moment where he survives 6 gunshots going to the wall and it doesn't hit him, and he tends to believe it's God's intervention. It also leads him to not be there when Vincent needs him the most. Right? Vincent eventually, spoiler alert, I mean it's 30 years after the fact, but Vincent dies because of the Jules kind of like, the splendor of Jules.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the interesting thing is the way it swims together, the way the narrative is kind of circular. And what I was thinking about today when I was watching it is you really have to stay on your toes. And the movie requires you to actually pay attention. And one of the things that we don't have anymore, Rich, is movies that require you to pay attention the entire time. You know, we just don't have them anymore. And I think that's one of the beauties of this particular movie. And the screenplay is phenomenal. Like, the screenplay is, it's not Chinatown, but it's not. Well, and that's the thing. We're going to talk about a lot of movies this summer. None of them are going to be Chinatown.
Sadly.
But this script is great. Like, it's like the foot massage thing is something you could have a conversation with your friends about, and it's just one of those things. Like, it plugs in to a human condition engine that the movie just kind of functions around. You know what I mean? Like, it's I just found it, and it's like when they talk about Jaws, and it's like, you know, Richard Dreyfuss is like, he's an eating machine. All he does is swim around and eat and make little baby sharks. This movie is like an engine. Once it gets going, it doesn't stop. That's an incredible.
Yeah, it's, you know, like the conversations about coffee, like the conversation about the foot massage. It's those weird little
Side stuff.
Specific things that still feel very universal that really spice this movie on the writing level and give so much depth to these characters. You could probably get away with not having a lot of that in there. This movie it'd be far less of a movie.
Well, I'll give you another favorite part that I kind of watched today and just was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And sure, the movie does get a lot of jabs at it that's super violent, all these things. But what I would say is the violence is all stark. It happens very fast, and then it moves on to something else. But the sequence I was watching today, like right before Uma Thurman overdoses, Travolta is having a conversation that every man has had in their head. Every man has had that conversation in the mirror that he's having, where he's like, you're going to go out there, you're going to drink really quick, you're going to go home, you're going to jerk off, you're going to
go to bed, yeah.
And then go to bed. That's what's going to happen. And then he gets out there and she's ODing, and it becomes, it's just everything kind of like layers.
I know what could happen, and I know it would be a bad idea if I did. And there are times I wish I had listened to that voice. I did not take the advice.
The OD saves his life. I was looking at because I'm watching it for like the umpteenth time today. I actually did a tour of colleges that was showing it. So I visited all my friends at different colleges in '94, and everywhere it was showing, we went to the screenings on campuses. So
cool.
I had such a blast with it. But I was thinking about it today, like Jules isn't there, so Vincent Vega dies because he's not there, right? Jewel also, the OD saves Vincent from dying as well. Because if she doesn't OD, they definitely hook up, and he is definitely murdered by Marcellus Wallace. Like, that definitely happens in another script. You know what I mean? But it, let's see. Tarantino is great at conversations in his movies. Yes, he's also great at the music and the background. Everything kind of ties together. But
I don't think he gets enough credit for that dialogue. I mean, people always talk about how stylized his dialogue is, and yeah, you can hear
taps into
his voice here. But the fact that what that dialogue is also doing in terms of creating
tapping
character,
into the human condition,
tapping
into the human condition and allowing an actor to play something more than the hitman, or something more than the palooka box, or something more than the gun mall, something more, right?
Yes.
The person we're going to go to, because it is then and now, this is one of my favorite reviews he ever gave. Quentin Tarantino is the Jerry Lee Lewis of cinema, a pounding performer who doesn't care if he tears up the piano as long as everybody is rocking. His new movie, Pulp Fiction, is a comedy about blood, guts, violence, strange sex, drugs, fixed fights, dead body disposal, leather freaks, and a wristwatch that makes a dark journey down through the generations. Seeing this movie last May at the Cannes Film Festival, I knew it was either one of the year's best films or one of the worst. Tarantino is too gifted a filmmaker to make a boring movie, but he could possibly make a bad one, which I think is an interesting. He is always teetering. He can
I don't
teeter.
think he has.
No, he's never made a bad movie, but
no.
There is always potential midway through a Tarantino movie to be like, this could go off the rails. This could be terrible. But then, I mean, like, everything, like, I'll give you an example. Like, you could watch Inglourious Bastards, and then there's something so ingenious in it. Like, I'll give you my favorite thing from Inglourious Bastards is the finger thing. Americans do it like this. Europeans do it like this. It's one of the most ingenious things, and like he's thought about it and he incorporates it, and it just that's what he does.
For me, the one movie I was absolutely deathly afraid could just crater and crash was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once I found, it's about the Manson family tangentially and involves Sharon Tate's murder and everything. And I was just like, well, either he has to, how does he deal with that? And ultimately what he did, we know what he did in the film. And if you haven't seen it,
we hope could have happened. It's a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale because it's once upon a time.
Right. We wish that this was the real ending.
And I cried at the end that, that they were able to do what they did. Yes, it's funny when they toss her in the pool and everything. Yeah. but that, he in just a very few short scenes really gave us the character of Sharon Tate that we have that frisson of knowing what's supposed to happen, what history has told us happens, and him saying, fuck history, I'm going to let her live in my world. And, it's an amazing balancing act that could have, like I said, blown up in his face very easily.
But also, I'll give you an example. Like that movie, when you watch that movie, right? The moment she goes to see herself in the theater, it's just so endearing. And you're like the whole time you're watching the movie going, I don't want to see her get.
No, she's adorable.
I don't want to see anything happen to her. So, okay, let's talk about legacy and franchise viability. There were rumors of they were going to get a Vincent Vega movie, a Vincent Vega and a Vega Brothers movie that never materialized. Tarantino has very much stayed away from making sequels, doing those sort of things. But the legacy here is, so this movie has an incredible legacy of look at the stars it produced. It turned, not just Tarantino becoming a household name, but it makes John Travolta, it brings Travolta back from the brink. Samuel Jackson becomes a legit major star. Uma Thurman becomes a star. Ving Rhames goes on, just to give you an idea, Ving Rhames goes on to what? He goes on to, in the following years after this movie, he goes on to Mission Impossible, Con Air, and Out of Sight.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis runs with this and comes back from the brink. And basically, so it's got the legacy there. It's got Tarantino's legacy. It solidifies him as a unique voice that will open any movie. A director that can open any movie is rare. And he is one of the, 4 that are alive right now, where you go, yeah, there's a legit chance I go to see that movie because that person's directing.
Spielberg,
Tarantino, Christopher Nolan. Right? It's not that many. But it's
anybody else I could think of, like Edgar Wright or something like that, is just me being a geek about directors.
No, but I think
but the general public.
The general public, I think Spielberg, Nolan is an event. Every time Nolan opens a movie, it's an event.
Yes.
But Tarantino, if Tarantino's name is above the title, that is people going to I went to see The Hateful Eight in a fully legitimate IMAX theater. That was the only place playing it in Orlando. So like ridiculous shit like that. Let's see. Got some comments. Uma and Ethan made one talented kid that's on fire right now. Yeah, Maya Hawke is
Yes.
Super talented. She's got a movie coming out directed by her father later in the summer as well. That's going to be put her in Oscar talk, I think. He was Kingpin too. Yes. True. All true statement.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it launched 1,000 ships actor wise. It launched his career, and here's the negative legacy, Rich. Every fucking director or person who decided they wanted to do intertwined stories said this is carte blanche to try it, and the answer to that is don't do it. Stop.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, other people can kind of use the same type of things, and hopefully, it's just there was a lot of bad in there. You know, I think the one example everybody kind of reaches for immediately is something like 2 Days in the Valley, which is a hot mess.
Well, 2 Days in the Valley, 7. Like there are some that are fun. 7 Psychopaths. There
8 heads in a duffel bag.
8 heads in a duffel bag. There are fun ones, but there are like they never achieve this level of whatever. But the problem there is everybody thinks they can do them, Rich, and they're not.
I mean, this is nothing.
They became quirky for no reason. You know what I mean? Like
this is like just think like 15 years earlier and look at all the Star Wars knockoffs.
Yes, same thing. It's that kind of culture.
Everybody's like, oh, spaceships, robots, lasers,
violence, jokey violence, lots of blood, and we'll make a joke about somebody getting killed here or there. I just think it's not, we started the show off with the idea that the movies that it's compared to are like, think about being in a film book or being in film history, and the movies you get to talk about are Psycho, Bonnie and Clyde, and A Clockwork Orange, and they're mentioned in the same breath as your movie. I do also want to, before we do Legacy, it did have an award. This is one of those 94 is one of the Oscar years where film geeks kind of like, I'm one of them. Mine are 81, 82, 94. Although the interesting thing about 94 is not necessarily Pulp Fiction. I think Forrest Gump beat 2 movies that are better than it. So it's not just Pulp Fiction that changed the world, but you can't tell me Forrest Gump is better than The Shawshank Redemption either. Which I don't know, might also be celebrating its 30th and might also be part of this Film-A-versary summer. Anyway, hint, hint. But like I said, I think, the interesting thing, it also got a lot of Oscar nominations. Everybody, and it had 7 nominations. So it did great. It won Best Original Screenplay, which is another reason, looking at it today, the idea that Roger Avary didn't sign or got talked into signing off. Roger Avary would have been an Academy Award winner.
Mm-hmm.
Sad. But okay. This is Pulp Fiction. This is one of the most influential and coolest movies, celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, Rich. 30 years of Pulp Fiction. Insane. Okay, so a couple things. If you like our show, by all means go like and subscribe. YouTube channel. It takes you 3 minutes to subscribe to us. Just subscribe. 3 seconds. Yeah, 3 minutes. I'm sorry. That would be really extensive. But go to the YouTube channel, has all our old episodes, everything we're talking about. Also, Indie Escape Network on Facebook page. Please, again, 1 like helps us out immensely. Rich, where can people find your stuff when are you coming home from LA?
I'm coming back later this week.
Are you?
In the meantime, I can be found at the Warner Brothers TCM tour tomorrow.
I want pictures of that. You got to take pictures of that.
Duh, yeah. I'm definitely doing pictures for you. I know I have one friend who will kill me if I don't send her pictures of Termite Terrace if the tram goes by there, and I think it does.
Are you going to Universal? I want to see Jaws and Earthquake.
I'm thinking of Universal as well. There's a lot of like little individual places around town I want to get to as well. I'm waiting on hearing if I'm going to be.
Yeah, do whatever you're going to do. I'm excited whenever you send me a picture.
I've got a lot of stuff on the plate. It's a hell of a smorgasbord.
Where can people find you?
Well, all of my writing is at filmbuffonline.com. It's a little slow this week. Obviously, I'm not there. You can also find Film Buff Online on Facebook. Our Facebook page always has links to whenever new stuff goes up. Plus, it always has a bunch of great history posts every day, which I spent a couple of hours before I left making sure that those were all scheduled for this coming week. I am on 2 other podcasts. The first is the Big Picture Podcast, which I do with my very best friend and co-host Natasha Bogutsky. And we've been kind of off for a couple of weeks, months, and we'll be back fairly soon. We've already talked about our first couple of episodes, what we want to do. So that's getting ready. And the other podcast that I do is in my capacity as a member of the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle. That's called the Film Scribes podcast. Also, we haven't done one of those recently either, but we should be doing one, I think, fairly soon. But you can always track both of those podcasts down and listen to a great over 100 episode back catalog for each one. With lots of great film discussion and some TV discussion on the big picture as well. And for the socials, you can find me mostly on Twitter and sometimes on Blue Sky. I need to work Blue Sky more. I know that. And in the next couple of days,
for your mental health, you need to work.
Next couple of days, you can find me zipping up and down the 101 and around town, trying to find some really cool movie locations to take pictures of.
Okay, well, JW the Movie Guy on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the places, Blue Sky, Threads, everywhere. So JW the Movie Guy. You just another quick question, Rich. Before we end tonight, are you going to hit Rodeo Drive at all? Like that's a question. There are a couple because this is next week.
That's right, baby.
So before we take a little bit of a break for the July 4th holiday, we are going to go 40 years into the past with Detective Axel Foley from Detroit going all the way to Beverly Hills and becoming Beverly Hills Cop. Eddie Murphy in one of the greatest star-making roles in the history of the business by far. Like it is. You can hear it as you're watching it. If you decide to watch it, you can hear him becoming a superstar in the back in the back of the television.
We talked about 48 Hours, where especially in that scene in the bar, in the country bar, where that's Eddie Murphy's arrival moment as a commanding presence, as somebody who you need to watch when they're on screen. And this was his star moment. Beverly Hills Cop is his superstar moment.
Yeah, this is the moment where everybody goes, wow. Holy shit.
I'm going to watch everything he does. Well,
from now on.
At least till Haunted Mansion, and then...
Well, except for Pluto Nash. But yeah, but Beverly Hills Cop is also, it is in 84, it's a movie that the legacy of the movie that we're going to talk about next week is how important it is to the idea of comedy and action pairing ever so slightly to, make a movie like Bad Boys Ride or Die, which is grossed $35 million this weekend. So join us next week for Beverly Hills Cop.
Indeed.
It's going to be it's going to be a super nice night. Monday, June 24th at 10 p.m. Also, in case you're wondering why we're doing Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F premieres on fucking Netflix on July 3rd. And
it kills me that this is going straight to Netflix. I really want to be in the theater and laughing my ass off with everybody.
Well, the funny thing about it is, if it would easily be, people would be going. If you're looking at Bad Boys, Ride or Die, Bad Boys for Life, don't tell me people wouldn't be going to see Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F in theaters. But fingers are still crossed. I'm going to be watching on July 3rd the moment I can watch it. That might be one I actually stay up for. But we'll see everybody next week for Beverly Hills Cop. Thank you for joining us tonight. Stay safe. And we'll see everybody next week. Rich, be safe on your trip and be safe coming home. We'll talk to you, everybody.
I know you don't want to do this show by yourself, so.
I know. Go watch a movie. Have a good time. Theaters are packed, though. And be nice. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, hold on. Hit the run button. Bye.